Imagine you're sitting in a bank conference room. Your pen is hovering over papers that represent 35 years of your family's blood, sweat, and sacrifice. This is the moment you've been dreaming about for years, the expansion that your grandfather talked about before he died. The dream deferred, finally becoming real. Your signature is the only thing standing between you and legacy. Then your phone buzzes. It's your neighbor. And what she tells you in the next 3 seconds will shatter everything you thought you understood about the people closest to you. This story terrifies me because it could be anyone. It could be you. Your name in this version is Marcus Webb. You're 58 years old. You've spent 3 decades as a financial crimes investigator before you left the corporate world, and 7 years ago your wife fell ill and you took over the family hardware business to be there for her. She died 5 years ago. That store, Webb's Hardware, on the North Shore of Chicago, in a neighborhood where your grandfather planted the first brick during the Depression, has been your anchor ever since. Your younger sister Diane has been your only sibling since your parents died in a car accident when she was just 14. You raised her. You've always protected her. You had no idea that one Tuesday morning in March would be the day she tried to destroy everything you'd built. You're in the middle of reading through the expansion loan paperwork when your phone rings. It's Patricia, your neighbor who runs the small yoga studio across the street from your store. Her voice is tight, panicked. Marcus, don't ask questions, just listen. There are people at your store right now. Big moving trucks. They're loading boxes and equipment out the front door. Your pen freezes mid-sentence. The banker across from you looks annoyed at the interruption. You've been sitting here for almost 50 minutes, shuffling papers, reviewing terms, preparing to add a second location to Webb's Hardware that would double your revenue and finally make your family's expansion dream come true. This was supposed to be the culmination of everything. Moving trucks? You ask her, standing so fast your chair scrapes against the tile floor with a sound that makes everyone in the bank turn to look at you. Are you sure? Patricia says she's watching them through her window right now. Professional movers in uniforms marked with some company name you don't recognize. They're carrying boxes, equipment, pulling things out of your building like they own the place. Your mind does a strange thing in that moment. It splits. Half of you is still in the bank, still thinking about the loan. Half of you is already at the store, already spiraling. Something isn't right. Something isn't right at all. What you don't realize yet is that you're about to discover a betrayal so calculated, so deliberate, so personal, that it will make you question whether you ever truly knew the person you loved most. You hang up with Patricia and grab your jacket without explanation. The banker calls after you, but you don't hear it. The 8 blocks to your store feel infinite. The whole drive, one thought keeps repeating. Diane was supposed to be in Milwaukee visiting her son, not anywhere near Chicago. Your sister, 46 years old, divorced, struggling with money, has been asking strange questions lately, more interested in the business than usual, asking about expansion plans, profit margins, insurance policies. You'd thought she was just being supportive after her messy divorce last year, after everything she'd lost. You'd thought she wanted to understand the family business better. You'd thought she was coming closer to you. The truth, the horrible, aching truth, was that she was getting closer to your files. By the time you reach the store, the trucks are gone. All that's left are tire tracks in the parking lot. That sick feeling of knowing something is catastrophically wrong without being able to name it yet. Patricia meets you at the front door, her phone already extended. I got pictures, she says, and her voice is shaking. She's photographed the truck, the license plate, the movers carrying boxes. You scroll through her photos with hands that are trembling. Professional movers. Uniforms marked Nebraska Premier Moving Services. You don't know that company. You've never hired moving services in your life. And they've loaded at least 20 boxes, plus what looks like your computer, your filing equipment, the same equipment that holds 35 years of business records, customer lists, vendor contracts, everything. The police arrive within 30 minutes. Officers arrive, young enough to be your children, and they treat you with the kind of patient politeness people reserve for confused senior citizens. You want to tell them you spent 30 years investigating fraud, that you understand how crime works, that this isn't some simple break-in. But you don't. They dust for fingerprints. They find nothing. They examine the locks and find no signs of forced entry. Everything is pristine. Nothing is broken. This means someone had a key. This means someone had codes. They check your security system, the one you installed after your wife died, the system that monitors every entry and exit. Officer Chen scrolls through her tablet, and her face goes pale. Your alarm was deactivated yesterday at 3:47 p.m. using the master code, then accessed again this morning at 9:22 a.m. using the same master code. Both entries show as authorized. The word authorized hits you like a punch. Like physics and gravity just became optional. You only gave that code to one person, your sister. She'd asked for it 5 years ago when you were admitted to the hospital for complications with your diabetes. She'd offered to check on the store. You'd given her the code because she was your little sister, and you trusted her with your life. The officers leave with sympathetic expressions, but you can see what they're thinking written across their faces like subtitles. Family drama. Probably just a misunderstanding. Maybe she borrowed something without asking. You want to believe them. You don't. Instead, you do what you've done for 3 decades in fraud cases. You walk through your store like it's a crime scene because it is one. You're not looking for what's missing yet. You're looking for what's different. And 30 years of financial investigation has trained your eyes to catch details most people miss. You notice small things. Your desk chair is angled wrong. The coffee mug you keep in the same spot every morning is now 2 inches to the left. The dust pattern on your filing cabinet has finger streaks running through it. Someone was thorough, but someone wasn't thorough enough. You open that filing cabinet with a sense of dread so profound it feels like drowning in air. Half the documents are gone. The original articles of incorporation from 1943 that established Webb's Hardware as a family business during the Depression gone. The partnership agreement you'd drawn up 10 years ago giving Diane a 25% stake when she got married gone. The commercial property deed gone. The business insurance policy gone. And in their place, sitting there like a neon sign screaming at you, is a single sheet of paper you've never seen before in your life. It's a new partnership agreement dated exactly 3 months ago. It transfers 60% ownership of Webb's Hardware to Diane Webb Morrison. Your signature is at the bottom, notarized by someone named Veronica Clark on February 15th. The document looks professional, legitimate, completely real. Except you've never signed it. You've never heard of Veronica Clark. And on February 15th, you were at the Lakefront Medical Center getting your annual diabetes checkup. You remember because Diane drove you there herself. That night, you do what you've done for 3 decades when confronted with sophisticated fraud. You follow the money like it's a trail of breadcrumbs left by someone who wanted to be caught but also didn't care. You log into your business bank accounts. Your stomach drops. Over the past 3 months, someone has been writing checks to companies that don't exist in your memory. Prairie Root Supply for $15,000. Midwest Solutions for $8,000. Lakeside Consulting for $12,000. All signed with your electronic signature authorization, but processed through an email you've never seen before. Diane Webb. Solutions@digitalmail.net. You call the bank's fraud line. The representative confirms your worst nightmare. Someone set up electronic signature access using your social security number and driver's license information, but through Diane's email address. They've been slowly, methodically draining your business account. The system is sophisticated. It's been running for months. It's been working perfectly. But it gets worse. You pull up your commercial insurance records. 3 claims have been filed in the past 2 months. Stolen inventory, each claim for exactly $9,800. Just under the $10,000 threshold that would trigger a detailed investigation. 3 claims. The payouts totaling nearly $30,000 direct deposited to an account at Midland Bank, not your usual First National. By 2 in the morning, you've pieced together the scope of what Diane and her husband Trevor have been doing. Forgery, wire fraud, bank fraud, insurance fraud, and something colder than all of it planning. That's when you make the call you've hoped you'd never have to make. David Martinez had been the FBI's senior financial crimes investigator on a pension fraud case you'd worked with years earlier. You'd spent 6 months building the case that eventually sent 3 corporate executives to federal prison for 15 years. David had retired 2 years ago and started his own investigation firm. He answers on the 3rd ring. You tell him everything. He listens without interrupting, which somehow makes it worse. When you finish, there's a long silence. Marcus, He finally says, "I have to ask you something and I need you to be honest. How certain are you that Diane is involved?" You pause. You think about your sister's voice coming from the loan office. You think about that notary signature. You think about how desperate she's been about money. But then you think about the sophistication, the planning, the way every piece fits together like a puzzle someone has been assembling for months. "David, I've been investigating fraud since before you were born. Every single piece of evidence points to someone with inside access, knowledge of my medical schedule, and legal authority to make decisions about the business. There's only one person who fits that profile." You hear him exhale on the other end of the line. "I know this is hard," he says quietly, "but elder financial abuse by family members is more common than most people want to believe. The average victim loses over $120,000. Most cases are never reported because of family loyalty, because people can't accept that someone they love could do this. You're doing the right thing by investigating this." You meet David at his office in downtown Chicago the next afternoon. His plan is methodical, exactly what you'd expect from someone who'd spent a career taking down sophisticated financial criminals. First, he explains, they're going to subpoena records from that notary service. Veronica Clark will have to explain who actually showed up at her office and signed those documents. Second, they're going to trace every fake vendor payment. David guarantees those shell companies lead directly back to accounts controlled by Diane and Trevor. Third, they're going to pull security footage from the bank when that electronic signature system was set up. David leans back in his chair and asks you the question that matters most. "How long will this take?" 2 weeks to build a solid case, David says. "But I need you to promise me something important, Marcus. You cannot confront Diane until we have everything locked down. If she knows we're investigating, she'll have time to destroy evidence, create alibis, reverse transactions. Can you act normal around her for 14 days? Can you smile and listen and play the grateful older brother while we build this case?" You think about the last time you saw Diane. She was asking casual questions about the store's insurance coverage. She was smiling. She was touching your shoulder like she cared about your well-being. You'd raised her. You'd protected her. You'd given her everything. And she was dismantling your life in increments so small you almost didn't notice. "I've been acting normal around suspects my whole career," you tell David. "I can handle 2 more weeks." But those 2 weeks nearly destroy you. Diane calls twice to check on your health, asking about your diabetes medication and upcoming doctor's appointments with a tenderness that makes your skin crawl. She stops by the store once to help with inventory, spending an hour going through your remaining filing cabinets like she's searching for something specific. She's humming while she does it. She's humming. Every conversation feels like swallowing broken glass, but you smile and play the grateful older brother who appreciates her concern. Inside, you're dying. Inside, you're furious. Inside, you're grieving someone who's still alive. Meanwhile, David's team is building an airtight federal case. The notary, Veronica Clark, cracks within hours when confronted with evidence of document fraud. She admits Diane hired her directly. Diane presented the fake partnership documents. Diane signed your name while Veronica pretended not to notice that the person on the ID was clearly a woman 20 years younger than the signature. The shell companies are all registered to a law firm Trevor had used for his construction business. One company, Prairie Root Supply, exists only as a bank account. Another, Midwest Solutions, is registered to Diane's home address. The third is completely fictitious. It exists only in the transaction records. The banking records tell the real story, and the story is worse than simple theft. That Midland bank account received $65,000 over 3 months. The fake vendor payments plus the insurance fraud payouts. But the money didn't stay there long. David's forensic accountant traces where every single dollar went. And the picture that emerges is one of desperation and greed that makes your stomach turn and doesn't stop turning. $25,000 went to pay off Trevor's credit card debts from 3 different banks. Another $18,000 covered gambling losses at that casino, out past the suburbs. Trevor had been betting on everything from college basketball to horse racing, losing money he didn't have. $15,000 went toward the down payment on a new Escalade that's titled in Diane's name. The remaining $7,000 had been withdrawn as cash over several weeks in small increments. The most damaging evidence, though, comes from Diane's own phone. David's contacts and digital forensics team obtained her text messages through a court order. The messages between Diane and Trevor paint a picture of premeditation so cold that you have to sit down. Bradley's at his doctor appointment. Diane texted on February 15th. Notary is here. Getting the partnership papers signed now. Trevor's response. Perfect. How much longer before we can sell the whole thing? Diane. Need to drain more cash first. He's too sharp to miss a sudden sale. Trevor. Give me 6 months to clean out the accounts. Then we list the property. 6 months. They weren't planning to just steal from the business. They were planning to sell your grandfather's store, the one that survived the Depression and thrived through recessions and economic collapses, and pocket the entire value themselves. Nearly $1 million. Your legacy. Your grandfather's sweat. Your wife's love for that place. Gone. But the worst message comes from just 2 weeks before you discovered the theft. Marcus is getting suspicious about the insurance claims. Might need to speed up the timeline. Can we get him declared incompetent? His diabetes is getting worse. You read that message 3 times. They weren't just stealing from you. They were planning to have you declared mentally unfit so they could take complete control of everything you'd worked your entire life to preserve. Your sister, the person you raised, the person you'd walk down the aisle at her wedding, the person you'd held in the delivery room when her son was born, she was planning to use your medical condition as a weapon. By the end of the 2nd week, David has built a federal case that would have made your old insurance company proud. Wire fraud for the electronic signature scheme, bank fraud for the fake vendor payments, insurance fraud for the phony claims, and elder abused the systematic targeting of someone they perceived as vulnerable. We're ready, David tells you on a Friday afternoon, and something in his voice has shifted. He sounds satisfied. He sounds angry. But I want to give them one chance to hang themselves completely. Are you up for a little theater? The plan is elegant in its simplicity. You're going to invite Diane and Trevor to dinner at the store under the pretense of discussing Diane taking a bigger role in the business. Diane's greed will do the rest. She'll see it as the perfect opportunity to push for more control, not knowing that federal agents are positioned outside and recording equipment is running throughout the building. You'll have her confessing on tape. You'll have everything. You call Diane that evening, putting every ounce of tired older brother into your voice. Diane, I've been thinking about what you said last week about helping more with the business. Could you and Trevor come to dinner Sunday night at the store? I want to discuss some changes. I'm going to make your favorite meal. The excitement in her voice is unmistakable. She's practically vibrating through the phone. Of course, Marcus. We'd absolutely love to. Should I bring anything? I'm so happy you're finally considering letting us be more involved. Just yourselves, you say, and you can feel yourself slipping into a performance. I'm making Amanda's meatloaf recipe. We need to have a real conversation about the future of the family business. Sunday comes with the kind of bright spring weather that makes you believe in new beginnings, even though you know what's coming. The weather feels like a betrayal, too. You spend the afternoon preparing your late wife's meatloaf using the recipe she perfected over 20 years of marriage. You set up a table in the office area right next to the filing cabinet they'd robbed 3 weeks earlier. Every detail has to look natural and celebratory. The flowers on the table, the good plates, the candles. You're going to serve them a meal while the evidence of their crimes sits in a cabinet inches away. Diane and Trevor arrive at 6 o'clock sharp. Diane is wearing a new outfit. Probably costs more than most of your customers make in a week. Trevor has his arm around her like they're walking into their own celebration. They think they've won. They think they've gotten away with it. They're already spending the money in their minds. Something smells incredible, Diane says, giving you a hug that you have to force yourself to accept. Her perfume is expensive. Everything about her is expensive now. You've outdone yourself, Marcus. Trevor shakes your hand with the firm grip of a man who thinks he's about to close the biggest deal of his life. Thanks for doing this, Marcus. We really appreciate you including us in the business planning. It means the world to us. You sit down to dinner and let them guide the conversation. Diane talks about how proud she is of your family legacy, how much the store means to the neighborhood and the community. Trevor shares ideas about modernizing, expanding into online sales, reaching younger customers. They're setting up their pitch perfectly. They're confident. They're already mentally spending the inheritance they believe is theirs to take. You play the grateful older brother who values their input, who's been thinking about the future, who wants to pass the torch. It's the best performance of your life. Over coffee and the apple pie you'd baked from Amanda's recipe, Diane reaches across the table and puts her hand on yours. Her touch makes your skin crawl. Her eyes are soft with practiced emotion. "Marcus," she says, her voice carefully modulated to sound concerned. "Trevor and I have been talking about your situation. Running this store is getting to be too much for you, especially with your health problems, the diabetes, the stress, all the paperwork and regulations and physical demands." She squeezes your hand like she's trying to comfort you. Trevor nods solemnly, like they've rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. "We were thinking maybe it's time to consider selling the business and splitting the proceeds. You could retire properly, Marcus. Maybe move to one of those nice senior communities. Enjoy your golden years without all this responsibility. Let us take over while we can still get a good price." You look at Diane's hand on yours. You remember teaching her to ride a bike in the store's parking lot when she was 7 years old. You remember her high school graduation, when you stood in the audience and cried because your parents weren't there to see it and you'd had to be her parent. You remember walking her down the aisle at her wedding, her hand shaking in yours as the organ played. You remember being in the delivery room when Keith was born, holding that tiny person and whispering promises about how you'd always protect them both. For 46 years, you've been the big brother who protected her. Then you remember that forged signature on the partnership agreement. You remember the text messages planning to have you declared incompetent. You remember the cold precision of the scheme, the calculated way they drained your account, the casual cruelty of it all. "Actually," you say, keeping your voice steady and calm, the voice you've perfected in 30 years of depositions and fraud interviews, "I've been thinking about the business quite a lot lately. In fact, I've been doing some pretty detailed research into our finances and legal structure." Diane's smile falters slightly. Trevor's hand tightens around his coffee cup. You can see the moment when doubt enters their minds. "Really?" Diane says, trying to keep her voice light. "What kind of research, Marcus?" You reach down and lift a manila folder from beside your chair. You place it on the table between all three of you. Diane goes pale. Trevor knocks over his water glass, sending it spreading across the tablecloth toward the folder. You don't move to clean it up. You just watch them both. "That folder contains copies of the fraudulent partnership agreement you filed with the county recorder," you say, using the calm, methodical voice you've perfected. "It contains bank records showing the $65,000 you've stolen through fake vendor payments and insurance fraud. It contains the digital forensics report proving you set up electronic signature access using my credentials. It contains your text messages, every single one planning to have me declared incompetent so you could sell our grandfather's store and keep nearly $1 million for yourselves." Diane starts crying. Whether it's from fear or shame or just being caught, you can't tell. Trevor looks like a trapped animal, his eyes darting toward the door, calculating whether he can run. "Please don't try to leave," you tell him, keeping your voice quiet. There are FBI agents in the parking lot outside. They can see the front and back exits. "This is a federal case now, Trevor. Wire fraud, bank fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy to commit financial crimes." "David Martinez sends his regards, by the way." Trevor's face goes gray. He knows that name. Everyone in construction knows about David's reputation for taking down financial criminals and making examples of them. Diane chokes out your name through her tears. "Please, Marcus. Please, I can explain. We were desperate. Trevor's business failed. The divorce took everything I had. We were going to lose the house, lose everything. I was going to pay it all back. I swear I was. But you see something in her eyes that breaks your heart more than all the stolen money combined. You see someone who's convinced themselves they're the victim. Someone who's reframed theft as survival. Someone who's told herself that what she did was justified. That your betrayal of her needs to be reframed as her protecting herself. She doesn't see herself as a criminal. She sees herself as someone who was wronged by circumstances and had to act. "You weren't trying to protect your family, Diane," you say quietly. "You were stealing from it. There's a difference. There's a big difference." The next hour is controlled chaos. David's team enters with federal agents. Diane and Trevor are read their rights. You have to call Diane's ex-husband to come pick up Keith, who was supposed to stay with them that weekend. That 12-year-old boy, your nephew, The person you helped raise will grow up knowing his mother is a criminal. That wound will never fully heal, not for him, not for you. You can't protect him from this truth. Nobody can. Over the following weeks, the full scope of their operation becomes clear through federal investigation, and it's worse than you imagined. This wasn't their first crime. Trevor had been running similar schemes across 3 states, targeting elderly business owners and vulnerable family members. He had someone on the inside each time: family members, trusted employees, people close to the victims. Diane was just the latest, the most personal, the one that hurt the most. The FBI found evidence that they'd already defrauded Trevor's uncle in Iowa out of $45,000 using fake medical emergency stories. They had plans already in motion to target your cousin Ruth in Kansas, who owns a successful bakery. The FBI found evidence of at least 6 other potential victims on Trevor's laptop, complete with contact information, financial details, and exploitation plans. The federal prosecutors offered Trevor a deal: testify about his broader fraud network, help them recover assets for other victims, name names. He takes the deal faster than you'd take shelter in a tornado. He's terrified of federal prison. He's terrified of what people like David might do to him inside. Diane, confronted with mountains of evidence and her partner's testimony, pleads guilty to avoid a trial that would have destroyed what was left of your family's reputation in Chicago. Diane is sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. Trevor gets 5, plus restitution obligations that will follow him for decades. The fraudulent partnership agreement is voided by the court. The fake vendor payments are removed from your business credit. David's contacts in banking help you implement security measures that would prevent this kind of inside access from ever happening again. You recover about $28,000 through asset forfeiture, but most of it is gone forever. The Escalade is sold. Trevor's construction equipment is liquidated. Diane's jewelry collection goes to restitution. It's not enough to make you whole, but it's something. It's justice. It doesn't feel like justice, though. It feels like someone took a piece of your heart and handed you a case number. Keith lives with his father now, which is the best outcome for everyone involved. You see him around the North Shore neighborhood sometimes, usually at the grocery store or the coffee shop where your wife used to take him for hot chocolate. He's growing into a good kid despite everything his mother put him through. You don't tell him the details about Diane's crimes. Someday he'll find out on his own, when he's old enough to search his mother's name online or understand the prison system. For now, you let him believe his parents made bad choices and are paying the consequences. That's kinder. That's the last gift you can give him from your older brother's heart. Here's what terrifies me about this story, and why I needed to tell it to you. The most dangerous criminals aren't strangers. They're not people who force their way into your life. They're people who are already in your life, already trusted, already positioned to do the most damage. They're family members who've learned your vulnerabilities. They're the people you've sacrificed for, protected, invested in. And when they turn, the betrayal is so complete that it rewires your understanding of love itself. But here's what I learned from Marcus Webb that changed how I see trust. You can love someone completely while still protecting yourself from their worst impulses. You can care about someone and simultaneously refuse to enable their destructive behavior. And sometimes the hardest, sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to shield someone from the consequences of their own choices, because protecting them from consequences is what allows them to keep hurting you. It's what allows them to escalate. It's what allows them to convince themselves they're the victim. These days, Marcus still runs Webb's hardware with help from a store manager he hired after his health took a hit from the stress of the investigation. The diabetes is manageable now, but the betrayal aged him in ways medicine can't address. The business is stable, profitable, and ready to pass on to the next generation if there is one. He also found a new purpose he never expected. Last month, he spoke at a Chicago small business conference about family financial fraud and exploitation. The week before, he helped another hardware store owner on the South Side catch his nephew stealing inventory. Turns out the skills that built his grandfather's store attention to detail, understanding human motivation, protecting what matters are exactly what other business owners need to survive these kinds of attacks. Patricia still keeps an eye on the store from across the street, watching for unusual activity, watching for the warning signs. She and Marcus have become closer friends through everything, bonded by shared trauma and shared victory. She reminds him regularly that his grandfather would be proud, not just that he saved the business, but that he's using the experience to help other families protect theirs. She reminds him that his wife Amanda would be proud too, that sometimes the measure of a legacy isn't just what you build, but what you save, and what you teach others to save. I want to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself. Have you ever been in a room where someone looked right through you? Where someone you trusted completely revealed that they were seeing you as an opportunity instead of a person? Because that's the moment Marcus Webb discovered. That's the violation at the heart of this story. It's not just about money. It's about the moment when you realize that someone's love for you was conditional, that their protection was calculated, that their concern was performed. If you've experienced betrayal from someone you loved, if you've discovered that someone close to you was systematically targeting you or your family, the pain of that realization is something that doesn't fully go away. It becomes part of your history. It becomes a scar that reminds you it's there every time the weather changes, and that's okay. That scar is what keeps you vigilant. That scar is what prevents you from making the same mistake twice. So here's what I want to leave you with. The mistake most people make is believing that being careful means being suspicious of everyone. But Marcus Webb understood something different. He understood that being careful means paying attention. It means noticing when details change. It means trusting your instincts when something feels wrong. It means being willing to investigate, to follow the evidence, to act even when it breaks your heart. And it means understanding that sometimes protecting your family's future means protecting it from family itself. If you're watching this and you've built something, a business, a partnership, a life with your family, I want you to ask yourself this question. Do you know who has access to your accounts? Do you know what your security systems actually show? Do you know if someone could sign your name and get away with it? These aren't paranoid questions. These are survival questions. These are the questions Marcus Webb wishes he'd asked before it was almost too late. One more thing. I want to know what you think about how Marcus handled this situation. Do you think he made the right choice reporting his sister? Do you think he should have confronted her differently? Would you have been able to wait 2 weeks while acting normal around her? Or would you have blown up immediately? Drop a comment and let me know. Type 1 if you think Marcus did the right thing. Type 2 if you think he should have handled it differently. Or type 3 if you think the whole situation was unavoidable, no matter what he did. And while you're thinking about that, where are you watching this from right now? And what time is it where you are? I'm genuinely curious about the people who watch these stories. Drop a comment with your city and the time. I read them all. And if you've ever experienced something similar, if you've ever discovered that someone you trusted was targeting you, I want to hear your story too. Comment below. Connect with me. Share what you've learned from your own betrayal. Because every single person who hears this story and thinks about their own vulnerabilities is potentially saving themselves from the same fate. This story is why I do what I do. It's why I tell these stories. It's why I need to remind people that the most important security system you can have isn't electronic. It's the clarity to see what's happening when people you love start treating you like an opportunity instead of a person. Before you go, I need to ask you something. Have you hit subscribe on this channel yet? Because if these stories matter to you, if they make you think about your own life differently, about the people you trust, about the vulnerabilities you never knew you had, subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Come back next week because I'm going to tell you about someone who thought their best friend was their biggest supporter right until the moment that friendship became a weapon. And that story will change how you see loyalty forever. This is a fictional story inspired by real emotional experiences, fully rewritten and reimagined in Chicago to create original content. Any resemblance to real people or events is coincidental.